is inflation and how it's going to help what we're already doing. So some of you have invested with me before, and some of you have never actually met me, but the idea is I'm going to show you what will happen with doing something that's already smart right now and then basically take it forward about another 10 years with some inflation, and it just actually even gets better. So here's the deal. We have assuming 7% inflation for about 10 years, which is what we saw between 1972 and 82. We basically saw the dollar go from $1 down to 50 cents in 10 years. And that could certainly happen again if you take a look at all the things that are happening potentially with the dollar in the next 10 years. So let's take in 2010, if we buy a $100,000 house, we put a 20% loan or an 80 LTV loan on it. So this is a good investor loan, doesn't matter what the interest rate is, but we have $20,000 equity in our $100,000 house. Now let's run that forward. Again, everything costs twice as much. So if you're fishing with me and we buy an egg-sucking leech in 2010 and we get to go fishing with it, and it's just one fly. And then in 2020, if I want to buy that same fly, it's going to cost me $2. Same fly, same fish that I get to catch, but it costs me $2. So the same thing will happen for real estate. It should track inflation. So now we're up in 2020. These are nominal dollars. The same property is $200,000, not from appreciation, but purely just from inflation. Here we are showing from $20,000 in equity up to $120,000, because the key here is that that debt stays at $80,000. It realistically in 10 years it's down to about $65,000 due to amortization, but we're not even going to talk about that. Right now we're just going to talk about the fact that it went from 80 and it's going to stay at 80. In other words, they can't come in and change the contract on this mortgage. They have to take their 80 and go away. So we have 120 versus 20. So that all sounds great that we have all this equity, but I'm saying this thing just tracked with inflation only. So again, all this, everything here is only worth about half of what it really is. If we now extend that to 2010 in real dollars, so apples to apples, in other words, if I want to buy an egg-sucking leech for $1 here, we're saying it's $1 here also. So here's the beauty of this. Sure, everything's cut down by half. It's now still a $100,000 property in real dollars, or real 2010 dollars. But here's what I like about this, is that this $80,000 mortgage is now only valued at $40,000. So in other words, we have an equity gain from $20,000 to $60,000 here. And this is just because of inflation. It has nothing to do with appreciation, has nothing to do with amortizing the loan. It's purely the fact that the dollar has been destroyed by half. Now the dollar destroys everything by half very differently. You can see that it beat the hell out of this loan right here. So that would mean if you're holding bonds or if you're holding mortgages, guess what? The value of that mortgage is going to be about half as much. So what we did is we gained from 20,000 to 60 in real, no kidding, 2010, and we saw that gain simply because of inflation, not because we bought the thing well or it was a great foreclosure or anything like that. Purely because inflation at 7% for 10 years beat the value of the dollar down to 50 cents. Now, here's another key. Here you're going to be taxed 15% on the nominal increase. In this case here, you saw the price go up $100,000. They're going to nail you for 15% on that. Nothing you can do about that. But what they can't do is they cannot tax you on the equity gain from here to here, because that's purely playing with the nominal versus real growth. So if they tax you on that, it would be a complete Ponzi scheme when you take a look at the government in general. So this equity gain is not taxed. That's another big benefit to all this. So step back and take a look at this. Anything that I'm telling you here, we're already doing. Right now, plenty of you have already worked with me. We actually had 90 LTV loans, which would be even better. The more debt you can stick on these things, the better, because that debt's going to get ravaged by inflation. So we're going to do exactly the same thing we are right now, except we're going to try to do more of this. I've kind of backed off, as you know. I was trying to get a lot of private money just because it was easy, and I wanted to help people out that needed the income. Well, now I'm starting to look at this, and Obama's writing a lot of checks that, obviously he can't actually pay for all the things that he's writing checks for. So I think we're going to see inflation. So I have to change the way that we're doing business by really taking advantage of the fact that we can make equity gains based on someone else's stupidity. So take a look at the fact that this becomes from 80 to 40. This goes from 20 to 60. I want to make this happen over and over again. What you saw in 1972 to 1982 was actually the value did not quite go along. So this $100,000 house in real dollars actually made it drop to 95. There was a slight decrease, and that was because the interest rates were extremely high. The Fed was at 21. The mortgage rates were about 16.7%. So a lot of people couldn't really pay for a house. So the prices had to come down a little bit. They still went up in nominal values considerably, but as far as the real values, they actually went down lower. But as long as you had a lot of debt on the property, this thing here really made up most of the difference. So there were a lot of people in the 70s, and you may know some of them, that had huge amounts of equity increases and really had no idea what really happened. They got house rich. And that was because this all happened without them really knowing it. Everyone had a mortgage basically, and then the mortgage got destroyed. You remember in 91, 92, the S&L crisis was basically because of this. Because the value of those loans underlying the real estate had gotten killed so badly that the banks, there was a transfer of wealth from the banks to just normal people doing normal things, and just so happened that in inflationary times, that just worked out to their benefit. So we're not going to let it happen by pure magic or by luck. We're going to actually engineer it so this thing right here happens as much as possible. So we'll talk more about that, but that's the overall idea. Take care.